7.2% is what prime rate is right now. The last time that we saw this was around the year 2000, but around the year 2000, property prices were sitting around 250,000. Today they are $1 million higher than that, 1.25. So how much would property prices have to come down to match what the salaries used to be? Remember that home prices are only a result of the salary with the interest rate. Those are the only two. So if we can trace back the last time that we had the interest rate at this point to seeing 250, yes, salaries have gone up. But the question is, has salaries gone up 5 times what they were? We're going to be looking into some fun data today, you guys. I got a lot prepared for you. So hopefully that you're going to have a good day. Let's check out this right now. This is the average price in Toronto over time. Now it goes all the way back to 2000. If we take a look at 2000 and we look up at this little corner up on this top corner up here, pay attention to what the prices were up here. It says that the prices for a condominium was 147,000, but a detached property was only $250,000. 250 for a detached property. Unbelievable. And now you can see right here, it says that average home prices are sitting at 1.1, but an average detached property, my friends, all the way up at 1.4 million. A detached property that's going back was that same rate. Now let's take a look at the mortgages, because I think this is a big telling sign. If we take a look at how the mortgages were just many years ago, let's take a look at how those were reacting. All right, so as we know right now, well, this is a load of malarkey. They haven't updated it yet, but 6.4, we're hitting closer to 7% right now in 2023. But if you drag your way back, look at this, all the 2%ers all through the 2010s, 1.9 in 2009. This isn't prime, right? This is the mortgage rates. We have to go back all the way to the year 2000 before we see anything even close to that, right? 7.2%. So when we go take a look at the prices and see that in 2000, a detached property was 250,000. You can't make this stuff up. So this is where the lag effect is going to come back and bite people. Am I saying that property prices are going to drop all the way down to 250,000? No, of course not. People's salaries are higher than that right now. So that's not going to happen. But it's very, very interesting for us to see. But let's try to put some sense to it. In the past year, in the past 12 months inside of Toronto, property prices have increased by 8.7%. They have recovered an enormous amount of money from 980,000 up to 1.1. So we have our June numbers out. If you guys follow our channel, you know that we're putting out the June numbers before even the Canadian Real Estate Association did. But these numbers are going to continue getting affected by high interest rates. But let's take a look at, is it everywhere? What's happening to the days on market? Days on market, again, they're going up. They're going the wrong direction, which is something that we're not really surprised about. Sales to asking ratio, which is what do we list the property? Is it going way over what people were expecting? Again, this is being affected as well. It went from 105% all the way down to 104%. Also, if we take a look at the Canadian Real Estate Association, they finally released all of their numbers. So the biggest ones that people normally ask us about are Vancouver and Toronto. If you guys have some specific ones you want me to take a look at, let me know. But you can start to see in the Toronto one how it's dipping off. It's slowing down. Of course, if you look at my information, you could see it a lot clearer with my info, how the property prices have dropped from 1.127 to 1.111. So what is that? They dropped $10,000. So when we're looking at the big number, you can see it just slightly ticking off on the corner, but not massively. So those are the huge markets, right? Of course, some people want to talk about Hamilton. Some people want to talk about Guelph. Maybe we can talk about Edmonton and take a look at them now that we have the June numbers in. But you should be able to see a pattern here, especially here in Hamilton. You could see it in Toronto. You could see how they're curling over. They're curling and flattening off. That trend of going up is not going to stick around for long. So one thing, we have a lot of investors on our channels. So a lot of people want to invest in Ontario. We also have the guideline that just came out in the past couple of weeks that Ontario is only going to be able to raise the rent on people by 2.5% next year for 2024. This has a lot to do. Again, it has to have been built and first occupied before 2018. But this is important for all of our renter landlords to know. If we try to look at our rates right now, this is just an example of one that we have in Toronto. Royal Bank of Canada in Canada at 7%, 7.09. So if we take a look at normally, the rates are still inverted. That is a big problem. Big problem, because when you always have to pay for a security blanket of the fixed rate. But look at what happened just at the end of last year. Fixed rates flattened off and variable shot to the moon as the banks are trying to sucker you into going to a fixed rate long mortgage to guarantee that your rate is going to be low. Check out that. They're willing to give you a 7-year fixed at 6.4%, which I think that you would be crazy to take, but that's just my opinion. I'm not a mortgage broker. You guys know I sell properties. So if we take a look at the states and see how the states are behaving, they're in a very similar light. So if we take a look at just in the past 1 year, we can see that the rates are hitting all-time highs now, up to 7%. We're seeing rates very, very high in the States, and they are matching what we're seeing here in Canada at 7%. So big problems. So if we take a look at the mortgage rates overall and see how it's going to affect our payments, if we had a mortgage rate of 2% last year on $500,000, it would be a $2,000 payment. But look at this. If you went to today's prime rate at 7.2 and you had a $500,000 mortgage, your payment would be at $3,600 from $2,100. We're almost doubling the rate. According to Statistics Canada, so far, the number of people who have refinanced their mortgages, they're up 30% as per Stats Canada. But we're expecting, Stats Canada warned, it's going to be 40% on average for people for their mortgage payments to go up. So then comes our big problemo. If we are at 7.2%, how much would a property have to go down to compensate for that? Generally, it's around 40%. So let's try something out. Let's try 300,000. There you go. So property prices would have to drop 40% for the payment to stay the same. For the payment to go from 2% up to 7.2, your property price would have to drop from 500,000 to 300,000 just to maintain the same payment. So you can only believe one thing at a time. It's like a kid. You have to make this choice. You can either have home prices have to drop by 40% for people to afford them, or people are going to get a 40% increase in their pay. One of the other. So you tell me which is the more likely event. I'm here just to tell you what math dictates. Math doesn't care about your feelings, I always say. It is what it is. So what do you think is going to happen? I'd love to know. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Do we think that loans do you think home prices are going to drop, or do you think people are going to get a huge increase in their pay? I already know which one I think. I'm curious to know what you guys think, because I'm pretty sure that we got some pain that is coming in the market. So we're doing this live on a Friday night. Thank you guys very much for coming by. If you guys have any comments for me, please let me know. We're live on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube. We'll see if we can get to some of your comments here as we're going along. We have a question about Winnipeg. So let's check out Winnipeg. Let's check out Winnipeg. So June numbers just came out. So Winnipeg will actually show up on the lower end of the scale. Here's Winnipeg right now. Winnipeg sitting at $348,000. And look at that. It peaked at 360. It hasn't even changed. So if you look at this orange line at the bottom, compared to the volatile markets up in BC and up in Toronto, those downshifts that you see there are bankruptcy events. So this down here, Edmonton and Winnipeg are sitting pretty. No problemos from their side at all. London, how is London doing? London, let's check. I've got a couple comments about what websites that I'm using. A lot of the websites that I use are private websites. Unfortunately, they're not accessible to the public. So let's take out London. London has had a big swing up, but it always was pretty flat, right? Just until about 2018, 2020 just set a fire under London. It had a massive drop in prices. Look at that, from 770 all the way down to 560 to drop $200,000. It has recovered a little bit, but we will be testing the lows again. So we're going to be seeing this pressure coming on people over and over and over again, unfortunately. Student loans are weighing on people as well. Yes, absolutely. So, oh, someone's saying that they saw this scenario back in the 90s. So, guys, I always say we're not trying to be a lot of people that are out there are always like fear mongering. They're telling you all kinds of crazy stuff. They want to get you very clickbaity. But listen, math is math. I always say math doesn't care about your feelings and it doesn't care about your passport. We could figure out the value of a property on the other side of the planet. It doesn't really matter because the price of the home has to equal your salary plus interest rate. That's it. That's the only variables here. You can have 30% of your income go toward housing. That's it. That doesn't change if it was in the 90s, if it was in the 70s, it's always the same. Can you make your payments? It's as simple as that. So if we take a look at the payments, and I'm not using any special one. This was a free calculator. You can go online at mortgagecalculator.com. Just go take a look at the numbers. So if you had a mortgage at $500,000 for 2% for 25 years, it's $2,200. But if interest rates go up to 7.2, you would have to drop the home price by 40% to keep the payment the same. So do you believe that they're going to change the rules that you have to have 30% of your income going towards your home? They're not going to change the rules. If anything, they're going to get tighter. So it's only 1 to 2 scenarios. What do you think? Do you think that incomes are going to go up 40%, or do you think home prices are going to come down 40%? There is only a couple scenarios that are available. So let's take a look here and see what we're going to run into. So let's take a look at some of the properties. We're going to do this live, and I'm going to turn my phone around here so that you guys can see, and I'm going to read your questions. If you guys have any questions for me about real estate and about you guys making more money, please let me know. I'd be happy to help you out in any way I can. The problem that we are having with when we look at the history of the money of the dollar. So when we're looking at a chart like this that says 2000 was $250,000. Let's go to 2010. We could see that a home price detached was 500. This is this beige line that goes up here. This was created by governments, this big bulge here. That big bulge was because they were banning foreign ownership. So there was a rush into the market very, very predictably and a drop off the market. But, you know, you would have had to wait from the peak sitting here in 2017. You would have had to wait all the way till 2020 for you to regain all that money. So you would have had to wait for many years for this, many years for you to actually see a profit again. So, you know, that would have been sad that you had to sit around for 3 years and it was only a pandemic that came and rescued you, right? So that's what we're facing right now. But the problem is, I find, is that everybody that I talk to, these are the problems that I find that I'm seeing in the market right now. When you take this, okay, and I'm measuring out what is 1 foot. 1 foot is 12 inches. And we all know that, right? So if we know that 1 foot is 12 inches here, what if the next day I tell you that 1 foot is now 11 inches? And the next day I'm like, 1 foot is 10 inches. And the next day I tell you 1 foot is 9 inches. You just have to remember that. And you're like, David, you can't change the definition of what that is. Like a foot is always 12 inches. But just try to play that out for me. What would happen if you went to a store and you said, how much for a coffee? And you want dried coffee at the grocery store, and they're like, it's $10. You're like, but for how much weight, right? And they're like, we're not going to tell you. But this is exactly what happens to the dollar. The currency units that we measure a house with are diluting nonstop all the time. My grandfather used to work for $1 a day. Then when my father started working, it was $5 a day. When I started working, it was $40 a day. So what had happened? Did I work 40 times as hard as my grandfather? My grandfather worked in a steel mill. No, the dollar is changing. So we're using the wrong measuring stick. When you are using a ruler, it's always the same 12 inches, right? I guess it was Subway. Didn't they start selling Subways that were only 11 inches? They were trying to get away with it. We get shrinkflation everywhere. But shrinkflation is happening in your dollars, and it messes with your brain. We're never chasing currency units. Remember, we're always trying to increase your purchasing power is the main goal. That's what we got to be doing. Fernando is mentioning that he thinks that there's going to be a lot of powers of sales that's going to be coming. And yes, I agree. So there's going to be a lot of problems that are coming in the market, and we're going to be seeing it for a while. Jason is mentioning over on YouTube, but realtors keep saying immigration is coming with more and more people and nowhere to build anymore. Okay, Jason, that's a very, very good, astute thing. I dislike realtors. And then this is coming from David. You guys know that I sell properties. If you guys want to reach out to me to help you sell your property, that's what my team specializes in, selling your property for more money, faster, and less hassle. But we specialize in selling properties. But let me tell you this, the two problems with that. Number one, there is so much space in Canada, it's ridiculous. We got land coming out our ears, second largest landmass on earth. So we got all the land possible. It's just that everybody happens to want to live right downtown Toronto and not willing to move anywhere else, or right in Vancouver. You might have to move somewhere else. But we got plenty of land. We could handle boatloads of people, okay? We can handle another 300 million people. The problem is what type of people are going to be coming. And that's the larger problem. And I find wrong on so many levels. So here's my problem. Immigration, we need immigration, but we don't need just a heartbeat. That's the problem. Is a lot of other countries, when you want to go and move to the country is doing an economic looking at it. They're going, okay, does he have skills? Is he young enough? Because all countries want the exact same thing. We want immigrants that are very young, that are educated, that have money, and preferably have some small kids. All countries want the exact same thing. It's not really hard. But in Canada, we don't do that. We kind of just go, do you have a heartbeat? And so if we bring people to the country that are 60 years old, that are retired with no money and have a lot of healthcare problems, and they have to go into a home, that doesn't help the country out. Actually, it's a drag on them. But it really, really depends. This is not a political channel. We don't want to ever be left or right. We follow reasonableness, logic, and we follow money. That's what we do. So the second thing, every realtor on the planet just seems to say this since the 70s. Immigration will fix everything. Immigration will fix everything. The only way that will actually fix it is if you believe that every single person coming to Canada has $500,000 to put down on a property. In addition, they're going to have a job worth $500,000 a year that they can afford the payments on that property. If that is your thesis, then maybe you could say that the home prices would be able to keep up. I can tell you that that's not the facts, that the majority of people that come here do not have that amount of money in the bank. And so if that is the case, we're going to be in more trouble, unfortunately. Now, I bristle when I hear that all the time, because I've literally heard it my entire life, is that, oh, all the immigrants are going to come with this magical money. And it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't. All right, so we got a question coming in for the Lower Mainland. Of course, we can look at that. I'm going to leave some of the other stuff up just so that we can have a gauge kind of thing about the rest of the country. I'm just going to grab my glasses here. Let's take a look at Lower Mainland. Here we go. So Lower Mainland, 2016-17, we could see that the prices topped out there at $950. Dropped all the way down to 800 in 2021. At the very, very peak, it was 1.2, sank down to 1,050,000. Currently sitting at 1,144,000, almost identical with Toronto and Vancouver. They're all neck and neck, Crazy, right? So very, very bloated let's say, home price, if we were going to compare down to here to, let's say, Edmonton or Winnipeg, these cities are slow and steady. But whenever you see these massive drops like you're seeing here, Lower Mainland, London, Toronto, Vancouver, these are bankruptcy events for people when property prices on average drop from 1.3 all the way down to 1,050,000. Remember, detached properties are going to fall more than the lower price homes. So if you took a map just like this, identical map to this, this would be high-priced homes, McMansions up here. This down here would be one-bedroom condos, very low and steady. That's how it goes. So if we're going to take a look at how this is going to impede the market moving forward, well, let me share something with you, because these are the winners and losers for you moving forward. Who is going to lose? The people who are going to lose are people in McMansions, in the massive properties, and big cities. And by big cities, I mean cities over 1 million people. If you're over 1 million people, this is Toronto, this is New York, this is California. They're all going to suffer the largest losses of that. But if we're looking at entry-level units, and so this is our one bedrooms, buy a Subway somewhere, not the sandwich, but transit. Cities under 1 million, specifically under like 750,000, are going to be doing much, much better overall. So keep watching for this stuff, you guys, because this is going to continue. Unfortunately, we are mid-process right now because there's a lot more to come. Addie is mentioning, do you really think we need to wait till 2025 to reach a 2% inflation target, or could it happen before? Of course, it could happen before, for sure. But the two things that really depend on this. Do you think that the really messed up way that they evaluate inflation will be continued to be doctored until it hits 2%? Yeah, I believe that. In reality, though, do we think that it will ever hit 2%? Not for probably the next 7 years, 10 years. It's not going to hit that for a very long time. We're going to have high inflation for a long time, but will they actually change that? Absolutely not. If you guys like this, please consider giving me some hearts and likes. I got like 0 for this, so hopefully I'm throwing out some knowledge bombs for you guys, and you appreciate it. So let me show you a couple things. So free website for you guys to go to. Take a look at Shadow Stats. So they keep on changing the way that they measure inflation. And so you can go and check out inflation, unemployment, however you want. And they have different math. So in the 80s, if we use the same math equation that they did in the 80s, though they're saying that inflation right now is sitting around 4%, if we use the same math equation right now, we'd be sitting around 12% inflation. Which, if you go to the grocery store, you're probably like, yeah, I am paying close to 12%. But in the 90s, they wanted to change the way they do math again. So currently in the red, they're saying that it's at 4%. But if you use the math equation that they used in the 90s, we would be sitting just around 7% right now. Which you would say, yes, that's a lot higher. Thank you guys for all the likes. Really appreciate it. So, they're going to continue to change the way they did this. And just a couple months ago, the United States changed the way that they measure inflation again. And Canada will continue to do this. This is the same old game that we've played for a long time. So let's take a look at Canada's debt to GDP and take a look at that. So if we want to go and see, let's see if we can pull ourselves way back. I'm looking for something in the 40s. Can't find it there. Nope, that's the 60s. We're looking for something that goes all the way back to the 40s. Okay, let's go here. World Bank, maybe. Do you think the World Bank has it? If not, we're going to also look up the U.S. debt to GDP. Canada and the States are very close. I don't know how far they'll let me go back. There you go. Let's use this as a proxy because I can't find it for Canada back to 1945. Okay, but in the United States, notice where their debt to GDP was. What was this big bump here? This big bulge was after the Second World War. So they owed 120% debt to GDP. How did it go down, you guys? How did it drop? Massive money printing and massive inflation. And that is what pulled their debt down. Everybody thinks that our inflation in the 70s was the problem. Guys, there wasn't much debt in the 70s. It wasn't around. That was a demand driven. This is a debt driven. And it's the exact same as where we are right now. So Canada, United States, doesn't matter. As long as you're in the G7, this is what you got to look for. So we're going to be running into a period of the 40s where we're going to have insane money printing, but it's not necessarily going to be reported that way. That's what I would be paying attention to if I were you. You have to bank for yourself 7-9% inflation a year, or else you're not going to make it. Unfortunately, you're going to get wiped out. So I mean, if it was me, that's what I would be doing. All right, you guys. So remember, when you're trying to figure out your inflation, the last thing that you got to be looking at, the last thing is paying attention to exactly what it is going on with the governments and what they're announcing it to you. Now, this doesn't matter if you're Japan, if you're Europe, doesn't matter. If you're looking at it, you got to figure out a lot of things on your own. You got to look at M2 money supply, what the tax increases are in your place, the effects of technology and supply chain pressures, and try to build yourself a model of that. So that's what I would suggest if I were you. So if you hang on and give me 1 second, I'm going to try to find for you something. We got something on here. Let me see if I could share my screen. Can you see that? Yeah, good. So if you're taking a look at this this chart right here is going to give you an idea of what you have to do. So you got to look at what your money supply is. Don't trust the government. You got to find alternative sources. So find out what your money supply is. Maybe your money supply, let's say in whatever country that you're in, is going up 8. Maybe your GDP, you got to punch it in there. Whatever your GDP growth is, it would be expressed as a negative. If it shrunk, you'd have to add it to a positive. Government spending is always going up. So add the digits that you are. The supply chain pressures that you're facing, whatever technology addition is happening in your area, you're going to have to look at the DXY compared to other countries, and then your local taxes. If you do that, then you'll be able to find out what total nominal inflation is. Only then would you be able to set your profit margin above that and then find out the total income increase required to beat real inflation. So never take it for their own numbers. You got to come up with a calculator yourself and your own way of doing it. No, this isn't a website. This is my own personal work that I do. Yeah, there unfortunately for me, there is no website that does the work that I do. I can't find anything that is available even under the paid market. So we have to build our own calculators and our own ways of figuring out where the markets are. So this is what we do. But we do a lot of this when we're working with our clients to help them sell their properties. If they're on the fence of trying to decide if they are going to sell their property or if they're not going to sell their property, some of them just call me straight up and say, Dave, we need to sell our property. We need to sell it right now. We need your team to come help us. They've already made up their mind. But some people are kind of on the fence and they're like, well, should I or shouldn't I? And I'm not in the business to tell you if you are or not. But if you have specific questions, sometimes I can help guide you a little bit with what we're seeing in the market, since we're talking to so many clients who are dealing with their properties every day. But it's very, very consistent. It doesn't matter what property type people are in. If they're a 1-bedroom condo, if they're in a detached property, or if they're in a McMansion, everyone is feeling the squeeze of this interest rates as it's biting them. So anybody who has been over leveraged at all are suffering right now. Anybody. What is the best possible solution now to the rates and on variable? 3 years left, not selling. Well, I don't know what is the best case scenario. It's what you think is going to happen with the markets moving forward. So, I mean, if you go take a look at the interest rates right now, you can get a 7% 1 year fixed. You can get a 6.7 on a 2 year fixed. But you have to ask yourself, what is the likelihood that these rates are going to stay higher longer? So the governments have said by 2025 they're going to start lowering rates. So do you believe that they can hold it at this 7% price right now for the next 18 months? Do you believe that? I guess that's for your own personal belief. I don't believe that they're going to be able to hold 7% for the next 2 years. I don't believe they can do that. So that's what I would say. But that's just personal. So if I was going to fix a rate, I would only fix it for 1 year, personally. But you know what? I'm not a real estate. I'm not a mortgage broker. We sell properties. That's what we do. But I could just tell you for my own personal sake, I would only be fixing it for 1 year. Now, there is a very, very good chance. You guys know that I believe that the rates for Canada is going to go up. Bank of Canada. So if you take a look at the Bank of Canada, what they're saying right now, their policy rate is at 5% right now, but we paused twice, which was a big mistake. So if we look at the United States, they just raised their rates to 5.25. If they're at 5.25 right now, do you think that they're going to raise it? Fed rate hike tool, I think it was called, something like that. Watch tool. Do you think that the rates are going to go up in the United States? Right now, we're sitting at a 96.1% chance that rates are going to be going up. 96.1% chance. So absolutely, the States is going to raise it up. They're going to be going up to 5.5%. And so Canada, again, our dollar is going to get crushed if we don't respond. So Canada should be raising our rate to 5.5%. Which is why I'm saying to everybody, prepare for 5.5, because the likelihood is it will come. We need to make up for these two pauses that you see over here in March and April, the two pauses. The lag is not taking care of it because immigration is too strong. I mean, if you bring in 1 million people to the country, do we not expect those 1 million people to eat food? So of course, the amount of food sold in the stores is going to go up. You brought in 1 million people. And they're like, you see, people aren't doing their job. But if you looked at the dollars, inflation adjusted for the population per person, it's actually down. But again, it doesn't suit the narrative. So whatever. Anyway. I digress, you guys. Anyway, I hope this helps you. Thank you very much for spending your Friday nights with me. But if you have any questions for me, I'm going to get running. But if you have any questions for me, please shoot them to me while you're here, and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. All right. But thank you very much for coming by. This is what the main takeaways for you for tonight is. The last time that we hit those rates was 2000. 2000 was the last time that we've had rates that started with a 7. 2000. Unbelievable. So if you go back to what the prices were in 2000, a detached property was only sitting at $250,000, which is ridiculous. $250,000 right here. Up in this right corner, take a look at that right corner. 250,000 when interest rates are 7%. So the only reason that home prices went up was because interest rates went down. Our interest rates went down for 40 years. So just please, if you did have time, I would love it if you would just go to a mortgage comparison calculator. Please do that and then just try out the numbers and see what will happen. You're going to see that home prices have to go down 40%. Will they actually drop 40%? No. They're going to start money printing way before that, you guys. As soon as they get inflation to their target, they're going to go, we won. And as soon as they do that, they're going to start printing money like they always do. So, you know what? I would just question things all the time. If we want to look at the CPI that they're mentioning right now, guys, they started to raise rates when? They started to raise rates at the beginning of 2022. So when they started to raise rates, my question to you is, why did interest rates still keep going up and up and up and up and wasn't slowing down at all till July? Why? Because there's a lag. It takes time for the interest rates to actually have an effect. Come on, nothing happens instantly. So as they keep raising rates, look at this. Now it's coming down and down and down and down and down. The problem is CPI common is still at 5.2%. So if the common inflation is still at 5.2, they got a lot of more work to do, which is why they're probably going to have to keep up with whatever the states are doing. The states, and it looks like a 96.1% chance they're going to raise it to 5.5%, which I think is a very, very good reason. Loaded Lines is saying it's called the CPI, and absolutely, guys, this is like I always say, this is not a political channel. We never want to be left or right. What I want everybody to do is use logic and reason. And if we use logic and reason, math, God forbid, that we use math, logic, reason, and follow the money and make smart moves. Because if you don't, you're going to get hurt. Now, this is the crazy thing, is the number one thing that I see people do that hurts them is not do anything. So most people are like scared deer in the middle of the highway, just with their eyes blinking, and they don't know what to do. So sometimes not doing anything is good. I mean, if you're lost in the woods, just choosing a direction and running is insane, right? You got to just stop running and sit still. But in this case, a lot of people over the past year have been frozen. I don't know. Last spring, I said to people to sell, and they're like, I don't know. I'm going to wait and see. They lose 100,000. I don't know. I'm going to wait and see. Lose another 100,000. I'm going to wait and see. Lose another 100. You know, our friends in Oakville, down 500,000. Some are down over $1 million. We were talking about one condo that's up on Adelaide, you know, the old Trump Hotel. The property went from 2.5 million down to 1.5 million. Just like that. Bam. What is that? Like a 40% drop? And it's still not selling. So the bigger the price is, the bigger the fall is going to be. But that indecision, that not moving, is probably the thing that hurts the most people. So to me, just be curious. Ask questions, right? Walt Whitman, Ted Lasso, right? Ask questions. Be curious. Dig into it. Don't just take for like one government, Canada, United States, Europe, whatever. Oh, guys, we have it all under control. Inflation isn't even a real thing anymore. And so I feel like we're getting gaslit all over the world because their inflation numbers that they're telling people, they're like, guys, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. But we're looking at it going, the cost of everything is to the moon. How do we get through this? And I mean, if we go back just a couple stories, well, I know what they're planning to do on May 8th. Let's just go back a couple on May 8th. Did you guys see on any news anywhere? Bank of Canada launches public consultations on a digital dollar. Please go to the Bank of Canada and look at that. It's not on any news. So they want to use a digital dollar or a CBDC. That's coming. The United States starts it August 1st, the FedNow program. So this is going to be what's coming. So whether or not you believe it's coming, that's that you can't dispute that. It's over 90% of the world's GDP is looking into a CBDC. So we can't really argue whether it's coming. What you can argue is like, will it be a good thing? Will it be a bad thing? That's I think the larger question here. And that's actually not very hard either, because CBDCs are two ways. There's good and bad. There's nothing that's all evil or all good. There's always pros and cons with everything, right? And so with the CBDC, you're not going to be able to steal money. You know, you're going to have to pay all your taxes. You're going to have to there's going to be less dodgy stuff that's out there. So more tax revenue coming in. You know, if you're honest, you're not going to lose. We never want to do anything illegal in any way. So, I mean, that's a good thing. But it also has the power to be bad. And I mean, just think of all of the dictators in the world that have ever existed. They would like foam at the mouth thinking about the opportunity that they could actually control everybody from a computer. Crazy. I closed my mortgage last month and now I'm in cash, but relaxed. No more payments. Great. Good job, man. the whole thing is have less stress. That's what we want for everybody. All right, you guys, I wish you the very best. Thank you very much for spending your Friday night with me. I hope that you have a fantastic weekend. We'll try to come on live this weekend. Think of any questions that you have for me. Please send it my way if you have any questions. If you're thinking of selling your property for any reason, that's what we specialize in. You can go to sellhigher.ca, where you can sell your home for more money, faster, and less hassle. You can do it. It's a free consultation with me for 30 minutes if you want me to look into what we can do for you to help you sell your property. All right, you guys, please like this video. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.